Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel, and today we're looking at the Drive to Survive Season 3 Episode 10, so the very last episode of Season 3. So when you read the information of this particular episode, and when it did, the little summary that describes what this episode is all about, it does say that they sat down with Lewis to talk about racism within this sport. However, they only dedicated the last 5 minutes of the episode to that particular topic, which is very concerning. I mean, in a way that it's good that they had the opportunity. He had the opportunity to talk about it, and they did broadcast it, but they only dedicated the last 5 minutes of the episode to it, and I think this is such an important topic that it is that you really could have got at least an episode out of it, because obviously this, even though there are, like Mercedes for example, they are trying to improve this, there's still a long way to go, and yeah, there's some baby steps that are being taken and all in the right direction, but they are exactly that, they are baby steps. So we're going to go right back to the very beginning of this episode, and we'll come back to the racism topic and why that pees me off so much that they only dedicated 5 minutes to it, and we'll go through what this episode was all about, shall we? So I've got to the point where we're at the end of the season. Lewis had become 7th world champion, had won his 7th world championship, which meant that he was now tying with Michael Schumacher for that record. He, in 2021, is trying to get his 8th. By the way, these videos, if you're watching these in 2022, were all recorded in 2021. So obviously, I don't know at this moment in time, how that racing season is going to end. So we've also discussed that there's not just only a world championship for the drivers, but there is also a constructors championship, which is for the teams. So I think Mercedes was first, Red Bull was second, and third place hadn't quite been announced. So Reynolds, McLaren and Racing Point, they were all fighting for this third place in the constructors championship. So obviously, if you come first, second, third, that means really big money for your team, which means you're going to have potentially be able to produce one of the better cars. So Perez had engine failure, which dampened the hopes for Racing Point of getting third place. However, it was McLaren that ended up winning the third place for the Constructors' Championship in 2020, so they were quite happy for that. And Aston Martin, as we've already discussed, they were joining Racing Point, and they were racing under for 2021, and they are now racing under Aston Martin, and they have now gone from being pink to green. And this was obviously, there was a huge buzz that Aston Martin was coming back to Formula 1, that they have, because they were a team in Formula 1 quite some time ago, and then they came back, so it was quite a huge story and everybody was in a buzz about it. So let's go back to the end where we began this video. So, like I said, the last 5 minutes of the season was Lewis talking about racism and what he's faced. And as of today that this video was recorded, he has I don't know what you have when you describe it, but there's a thing called Hamilton's Commission, I think it is, and they did a lot of research, which they've released today, on people that come from minority backgrounds, and why it is that they're being scrutinized, they're not getting all these jobs. From what I know, that over the 40,000 jobs that are available in Formula 1, only 1% come from a minority background, which is absolutely disgusting that's the case, and that really needs to change, because everybody deserves to have an equal opportunity, no matter what colour their skin is. You know, it's like the Euro 2020, which happened in 21 all over again, where because the player who missed the penalty shot was black, that everybody decided that they were going to be racist, which was no need for, because the whole team made this huge horrific effort to get to the finals, where we hadn't been for 55 years. So yeah, we didn't win, but we got second, and I think second in 55 years is pretty damn good, and it's a great result. And the players that weren't white, so the black players, they were being scrutinised over the fact that they lost, and they were getting all this racial abuse thrown at them. Like I said, there was no need for it, because if they made that penalty and we did win the Euros, then, you know, they would have been hailed as heroes instead of the villains. But, you know, people just used them as a scapegoat for what had happened, not the fact that they're all pretty young, and that's a lot of pressure to be representing your country and trying to make that penalty. And they've done so much in their own personal lives. Like, one of them he went and got a load of food for children that were obviously starving, so, you know, he could make sure that children in his local area weren't going hungry. And, you know, he didn't deserve any of this racial abuse. Nobody does, and it's ridiculous that we're still living in a world where we can't accept each other for who we are, and that we have to watch what we say in case we upset somebody, you know, because somebody's going to always be upset with whatever we say, because we can't make everybody happy at all, and we all make mistakes, because we are all just human. And it really does not matter whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus, or if you're Asian, or if you're black, or whatever your race is, or whatever your gender is, because we are all the same. We should all be treated equally, and that's what this channel is all about. And not only should we be treated equally, but we should also be treating our four-legged animal friends, or any animals, with the same respect and equal opportunities as well. Because we have a lot to be grateful for animals as well, which you can learn all about that in some of my other episodes. So back to what Lewis had to say in those last 5 minutes of this episode, which was, like I said, this is such an important topic that I feel as if they could have gotten a whole episode out of this. They could have dedicated an episode to this rather than the last 5 minutes. So why were they talking to Lewis? Well, Lewis is so far the only F1 driver who is black. I think he was like the first, and he's currently still the only one driving them, which is appalling to say the least. So, you know, he's trying to fight to change all of that, because he decided that, you know, he's not going to stay quiet anymore. And, you know, he's been challenging F1. The drivers were taking the knee and wearing like end racism t-shirts. So Lewis said that about the people telling people who are not white to go back to their own country. So this has happened to Lewis. He's been told to go back to his own country, even though they're in their own country, because just because somebody doesn't look like they belong in that country, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are from that country. Because you know what really annoys me is that there was a documentary not all that long back, and because technology has improved so much, they were able to reconstruct these remains that they found, and these are the oldest remains that they found in Britain, and they were able to reconstruct his skull and you know, be able to tell what he looked like. And shock horror, he was black, and he had blue eyes, and he is considered as the first man in Britain, because he's the oldest skeleton that we've been able to find. So the very first people were all black. We all, like, our descendants, they all came up from Africa, so of course they were black. If anybody's the freaks in this world, it's us white people. Okay, we're the weird mutations, you know. Nobody wants to be white. I'm not kidding you, because obviously where we all came from Africa, there was sun, so we had darker pigment in our skin to be able to protect us from the sun. But because we're these white freaks that live in colder climates, and because we're destroying the world, the planet's obviously getting hotter, and we're cooking ourselves, and we look like bloody lobsters. Like, you can't win. In the winter, you look like a damn corpse, right? Because you're pale and you just look dead, which I don't particularly mind, because I consider myself to be a goth, and that's just kind of my look. But in the summer, if you're not careful, if you're anything like me, you're a little bit like a vampire, you burn so bad that you look like a goddamn lobster, okay? And that is not a look that anybody can pull off. So if anybody's like watching this and they're white, then you need to just get this self-righteous attitude away from you. Get your like self-righteous head out your pompous backside and grow up. You know, we are all human at the end of the day. And I am saying this because I'm fed up with this, because I have a family member who was putting all this racist content on Facebook, and you know, every time I spoke against it, and it was particularly about the person on that post, he was turned around and he'd be like, he would like it or whatever, but he still put this content on. But as soon as I turned it around on him and had to go at him for reposting this awful content in the first place, he cried and got onto Facebook claiming that he had been hacked, and then he was supporting the black footballers, are saying how people shouldn't be giving them this racial abuse. However, he has been known in the past to slag Lewis off and saying that he's a bad man and should have been an absolute racist get. Okay, because I turned around and I said to her, you know, I'm not going to tolerate racism or any form of bullying from a complete stranger. So what the hell makes him think that I'm going to tolerate that in my own family? Blows my mind. Okay, I mean, I've known some racists in my time, but god damn it, did they admit that they are a racist? What pees me off with this so-called family member so much is that he's a goddamn hypocrite, okay? He won't admit that he's racist, and I think that is probably worse, okay, because being a hypocrite just drives me insane. If you've done something wrong, at least have the guts to own up to it and not just hide behind the fact that you were hacked. It's ridiculous. No one's believing this crap, honest to God. Anyway, back to this. So one thing that Lewis has also said was that it really hit a nerve as it was too close to home, obviously, and that also what he had said was actually hit me a little bit close to home, because when he was about 8 years old, he got told that he wasn't going to achieve anything in his lifetime, and the reason that he got told that was because of his colour of his skin. When I was a similar age, I was told exactly the same thing, that I was never going to amount to anything, I wasn't going to achieve anything in life, I wasn't going to get anywhere, and the reason I got told this was because I was a girl. Right, so obviously it has nothing to do with the colour of my skin, and even if I wasn't white, it still wouldn't have anything to do with the colour of the skin, because the person who told me this was my own biological father. Yeah, that's right. My own biological father, the guy who is meant to be my guardian, who was meant to care for me, turned around and told his only child, never mind his only daughter, but at the time his only child, when she was like 9 years old, that she was never going to amount to anything. And guess what? That sucks. I can't speak for this, but that one moment in my life has haunted me. I am now an adult. I am in my 20s, in my early 20s, and that has haunted me ever since that came out of his mouth. However, it's also given me the motivation to prove him one and stick one finger up and in the air and get to where I've got to. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened with Lewis. Lewis obviously wasn't told this by his dad, he was told this by another child, that he was karting against, they obviously didn't like the fact that he won that karting race. My dad told me the similar thing because we were playing mini golf and I had won the mini golf. So you can see a little bit of a connection there. You know, even though it's two different experiences by two different people who were told something very similar for two different reasons, you know, it's still horrific and it shouldn't be done. At all. You know, and I would think that this has obviously stayed with Lewis, potentially, and it has helped him with this motivation to get to where he is today as well. But yeah, it kind of gets a little bit worse for him. Like, I recently read an article on him, and the stuff that he has had to go through just because of the colour of his skin is horrific. Like, he was kicked out of school for a short time because of an incident that happened that had nothing to do with him, but because he was black, they just automatically assumed that he had something to do with it, which is wrong, because just because of the colour of somebody's skin, it doesn't make them a thug. It doesn't make them a violent, nasty person, okay? I mean, you think about it, Donald Trump, he was white, and he was a narcissistical bumhole. You know, he was the most racist guy ever. He was sexist, and every single crime that he's been accused of, I can probably guarantee that he has done it. It wouldn't surprise me. And yet, he caused a terrorist attack in his own country. And yet, he has more followers and people are being nicer to him some of the time. And it's all because he's white. And it just blows my mind. It's absolutely ridiculous. So, like, yeah, so the more Lewis began to win all these races and became more successful, because, you know, he has the talent, the more that he was the only black face became an issue, and it shouldn't have become an issue. Okay, he cannot do a damn thing about the colour of his skin. That's just the way that he was born. It's just in his genetics. He can't help it. He didn't choose to be black, because nobody chooses to be black. Nobody chooses to be white, okay? It is what it is, because it's in our genetic makeup. And I can't believe we are still to this day criticising people because of something they have absolutely no control over. And it isn't just race, but it's things like sexuality and gender and how people identify as well. Nobody has control over these elements, so we need to start loving one another and just being a bit more respectful. Because you wouldn't like it if you were in their situation. And I'm speaking from an outcast point of view. And you know what really blows my mind is that I come from a really white dominant place. You know, I grew up and didn't really see a single person of colour at all. And yeah, I have more respect for them than people that grew up in major cities. And I lived in the countryside. You know, that just blows my mind that this is happening in the world. We need to wake up. We need to change this. It's people, they have feelings, you know. Lewis sometimes, you know, he was asking himself, why him? Why is he the only black driver? You know, he couldn't understand why there wasn't other black drivers in this sport. But he doesn't mind it. He doesn't mind being the only black person in the sport. Like, he's working to change it, right? And he's trying to get more black people into this sport. That's his goal at the moment. That's what he's trying to achieve. But, you know, he is using his success and his fame and his fortune to help other people of colour get into this sport. And, you know, because he's said in the past, he's talked about how it's a rich man's sport, it's a rich man's world, and his family, they had little to no money when he was growing up. Which he even claimed that he grew up on his dad's sofa, you know. And I think he's also mentioned in the past, like, his dad had like 4 jobs in order to, you know, keep him in karting, because karting is a very expensive sport in itself, and you know, he really wanted to help Lewis succeed and get into his sport, you know. And Lewis has sort of also used that as the motivation to get to where he is today as well, because he doesn't want to let his family down, especially when they have sacrificed so much and dedicated quite a lot of the time to get him to that place. You know, he knows he hasn't done it all by himself, because he's not this selfish, arrogant person that some people try to make him out to be. And you know, he understands and he knows how hard this was for his parents when they were raising him to keep him in this racing. And you know, he believes that all this built up energy and frustration, the racism that was happening to him, is basically what helps him on the track. Is the beast, his words that you see on the track. You know, that gives him that motivation to drive to the ability that he does. And he basically turned around and also said that he has no filter, and that he just says what's on his mind, and he really does not have the energy to worry if he's upset somebody, you know, or somebody, you know, somebody's hurt, he's hurt someone's feelings. Because at the end of the day, like I said, you can't make everybody happy. You just cannot do it. And sometimes you just have to be blunt. You just have to say as it is. You know, you can't just go around trying to mind people's feelings. But when I say you have to sort of go around and say what it means, you know, you still have to be respectful in it. You can't just single out somebody for a physical characteristic like the colour of their skin, or a characteristic that maybe you don't actually see. You don't know that person all that really well, but maybe you do know that they're part of the LGBTQ or whatever. You can't just single out somebody because of a characteristic that is purely them and attack them over it. It's just not right, and we need a huge wake-up call. And he also said that it's what you do with your success, right? So it doesn't matter how successful you are. You can be the most successful person in the world, but in order to make a difference, it's how you use that success. So if you're going to use that success for the great good, like he is trying to do, like he's like the ideal person to be talking about on this channel, and potentially we'll get into that in another video. And you know, it's what you do with that success. If you're going to make the world a better place, then that's what your legacy is going to be when you die. You know, you're going to be remembered for that, and not necessarily what it was that made you famous in the first place. And he basically also said that he was going to be damned if all those wins and all those trophies and all this success that he's gained over his long career weren't going to be used to make a difference. And the fact that this was only left for the last 5 minutes of this episode made my blood boil, because like I said, this is such an important topic that they could have done an episode on purely on racism and the lack of equality and diversity which is in that sport. They could have spoke out about it a little bit more. However, they just chose to dedicate the last 5 minutes of their season 3 to this topic, which I don't think was good enough. But at least, like I said, credit where credit is due, that they did dedicate some time to the issue. Even if it was 5 minutes, it is better than nothing. Do not get me wrong, I am not knocking it, okay? But this is what annoys me, because this is sort of what all this channel is all about, what the unity of life is all about. I've mentioned in the past that I'm hopefully going to be starting up a business with the unity of life. There is 2 sides of this business, So there is my animal expertise and the consultations and everything that I will be doing on one side, but on the other side it would be working with other organisations and other companies and trying to do like scholarships for people of that would struggle normally to get to university. So that would be like people from minority backgrounds, because when I think back to my own university experience, there was a few people of colour, but there wasn't many. In fact, as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any people of colour on my course whilst I was there, and hopefully we can help to make that different and make that change and make sure that everybody has the equal opportunity to be able to go to university if they so wish to, or to be able to get to the career that they want to. Because, you know, one thing that universities don't seem to do is they don't really support you after you've graduated into taking that next step, whether that's doing postgraduate and doing your masters, or setting up your own business, or just getting a job. Whereas if I can get this up and running, and that is hopefully not going to be an issue, and you'll be able to move on and know what your next steps are, and if you are looking for a job, be able to get that job as soon as you walk out of university. But if you want to know more about that, then I talked about it in my introductory video. And if there's anything more, we have got an email address which I can put into the description box. We also have social media that you can contact us by, and I'll also put them in the description box below. And I will see you in the next video, where we go back to animals for a little while before we then explore women in motorsport. So I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.